That's one of the reasons why he was one of the most popular interviewees in French football, because you knew you would always come back with at least one of those very strange statements, which made sense to Eric and Eric only, it seems.
Because he does it with this French accent and with a straight face, and it's because he's doing a press conference, because he's just done something so aggressive that people think, oh, he's just an absolute nutter.
Today at Old Trafford, it's the return of Eric Cantona, the most talented, temperamental and talked about footballer in Britain.
Came back from his ban and his first game was Old Trafford against Liverpool. You don't get any bigger games than that. And for him to come back in his first game and make one and score one was just, well, that's just the sort of thing that happens to Eric.
Cantona is back!
Cantona came back in October '95 with United chasing Newcastle. It became the Premier League's most famous race for the title.
United were not league leaders. Newcastle United were the league leaders, and at one point opened up a 12-point gap over Manchester United, which Manchester United began to slowly claw back.
You know, we'd come in Newcastle after winning 4-3 or 3-3 draw, and we'd had Man United get on. They won 1-0. Yeah, Schmeichel played brilliant, and Cantona scored.
And at the start of March '96, there was an absolutely vital game at Newcastle away.
If we'd have won, we'd have gone 6 or 8, probably gone on to win the league, really, I would have thought.
Knocked on by Asprilla. Ferdinand, the first chance of the game.
Asprilla had just signed for Newcastle, and we couldn't get the ball off him. They created about 15 clear-cut chances in the first half.
Takes it. Oh, against the bar, back into play. Headed down by Asprilla.
We got absolutely battered. We did.
Absolutely battered them. Schmeichel was brilliant.
Ferdinand!
Cantona came up and scored. And that's what he did.
And it comes for Cantona! Manchester United have struck!
You probably thought, we don't deserve anything out of the game. But yet one stroke of genius at the far post. We managed to beat them 1-0.
Well, it's a huge victory for Manchester United. The gap is cut to just 1 point in Newcastle's favour. Giggs, it's Cantona!
I think he scored the winner in about the last 6 or 8 games. He scored an equaliser or a winner in pretty much most of the running games.
And that had not happened before Cantona. Sometimes Manchester United would dominate games, but they wouldn't win the games. But hard luck, we played really well today. But they hadn't won.
Looking for the shooting opportunity and finds it! Eric Cantona again for Manchester United!
And when you heard the result on the radio, you didn't have to know, they didn't have to tell you who the goal scorer was. You knew it would be Eric Cantona again and again and again and again and again.
And there is Eric Cantona again. Absolutely spot on.
He was a big game player, at least domestically, in a way that Cristiano Ronaldo was many years later. You could go to Porto away needing a win, and Ronaldo would get you that win. And Cantona was like that. Arsenal would come to Old Trafford, and it would be a tough game because Arsenal were and are a very strong side, but Cantona would score the goal and get the 3 points, and then go home and watch some French art house movie or whatever he did in his private life.
I remember the Arsenal goal. Chested it maybe about 30 yards out, and then he volleyed it from 25 yards straight over David Seaman. An unbelievable volley. I
think between Peter Schmeichel and Eric Cantona, they really took it on themselves and won us the league. I'm not saying the lads didn't do a good job, but without those two, we would never have caught Newcastle.
Cantona, yes! You felt it had to come eventually.
His 5th and final season at Old Trafford was as captain.
He was not the sort of person whom you'd think could lift a dressing room or deliver a tactical speech. But on the other hand, obviously, he had this huge charisma, and he led by example.
But two options to the left. Cantona!
He was the captain because technically he was the best, because also he was a fighter. But he was not a man like Roy Keane, for example, or a Tony Adams, so people you would immediately think as great captains, who not only led by example on the field, but also had the capacity to lift people with a speech and be true representatives of their club. I mean, he was a great representative of Manchester United, but not that way. I don't think the armband. I think the armband weighed a little bit heavily on his arm, strangely enough.
Cantona's lovely little touch to lay it off for Giggs.
Cantona remained influential throughout as a fourth title was duly won. And then it all ended, as suddenly and surprisingly as it had begun.
He felt that his heart was not quite in it, that the season of the comeback was the season when he could prove what he could do, who he was. And he'd done it. And once he'd done it, what else was there to do?
You know, we had a poor performance in the European Cup. I think we got beat by Dortmund at home, got knocked out by them. And I think, you know, either he fell out of love with it or he'd realised that he couldn't go any on, couldn't take his, you know, his dream of winning things any further. And for some reason, when I look back at him and, you know, watching him around the pitch, it's as if he'd made his mind up what was going to happen. And he didn't seem to celebrate as much as everybody else did. And it was a sad day, really. Well, it was a massively sad day. For whenever he was at United, you know, he is still a god, and everybody still sings about him, everybody still mentions him. And he will go down in, you know, folklore history.
Eric Cantona's signing for Manchester United, it wasn't so much a signing as a marriage when he and Old Trafford and Sir Alex came together.
I think Alex Ferguson saw that he had a little pocket there for Cantona that would be perfect for him in a team that could really play around him and play off him. And I think when he got to Old Trafford, I think he found his home, if you like. The team around him were exactly what he needed, and he was exactly what the team needed, so it fit perfectly.
I don't think that Sir Alex Ferguson has ever treated a player the way he's treated Eric Cantona. Eric Cantona was forgiven an awful lot of things, got away with an awful lot of things that no other Manchester United player, past, present or future, will ever be forgiven.
I also know that other players resented a little bit the fact that he was cut so much freedom.
Yes, he was late at times going to the training ground, generally because he got lost in his car, typical.
And the manager would carpet them for wearing their own style of clothes.
Yes, he would arrive dressed up in, you know, Technicolor jazz suits.
They felt that it was one rule for one and one rule for another, which it was.
Brian Robson, Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, Paul Ince, they all knew why Sir Alex was doing it, so they left him alone. And they knew if they did it in a certain way, they'd get the best out of Eric, which would mean the best out of the team.
Cantona played 143 league games for Manchester United, scoring 64 goals, many of them great goals.
I really enjoyed the way that Eric Cantona played his football. I think there was a kind of a kindred spirit there. I think he really didn't care what other people thought about him. He played the game how he wanted to play it, and he had a kind of arrogance and a confidence about him on a football pitch which I really admired, I must admit, and some of the goals that he scored for Manchester United kind of took your breath away and just made you just go, yeah, that's pretty special.
The goal that he scored at Old Trafford, where he chipped it into the far corner and then just stood there with his chest pumped out.
He scored a few goals against Southampton, and I have to say the defenders in the Southampton side never enjoyed playing against him. You know, he wasn't the quickest player in the world, but he was strong and he had a sense of timing and a knack of finding space in games.
I was the charger in the wall.
It's Cantona who's got to try it, and what a goal!
He just ran up and spanked it, and to beat Dave Seaman from distance, you know, doesn't really happen. It was a very tight game, and it was going to take something pretty special to win that game, and, you know, Eric Cantona produced it.
With great players, that's the problem. They can be quiet, and then all of a sudden, when that one chance is there, they do the business, and they hurt you quite a lot, and Eric was certainly one of them.
Now Manchester United fans have been spoiled by so many championships, but at the time, to say you're champions of England was a huge thing. I remember growing up in the 80s, and it was Liverpool, Everton, occasionally Arsenal. Never ever United. And Cantona delivered in a very tangible way, with trophies.
The attitude and the arrogance and the confidence he had on the pitch was immense. And when he turned up, he just took us onto a new level and really brought something special to the team. He was a special bloke, Eric.